Good afternoon, everyone. I'm your girl, Jeanette Smith, certified life strategist and mindset coach. And it's time for another Life Unscripted. We're back. It's Thursday, and we're doing a really special thing. I haven't done like a reunion show. Well, no, that's not true. We did do a reunion show on the devotional, but this is a different reunion show. Has a little more meat to it from the standpoint of walking out life stuff. And I had some friends and new friends that I invited into a conversation. Hopefully, you all caught it with me a month ago in June, talking about our implicit biases. At that time, the country was starting to figure out that we're not saying the same thing, we're not hearing the same thing, and we need to come to the table and figure out how to talk so people will listen and listen so people will talk. And I wanted to go deeper into that, get some people rounded up that I knew that come from different perspectives, different backgrounds, different understandings, and just sit down and have a real conversation from all aspects of life. And so I've invited them back. Good to see everybody in the chat rooms across all the platforms. Hello, Facebook, love you, YouTube, Periscope, Twitter. Got nothing but love for all of you. Good to see everybody. Lisa on the West Coast, good to see you. Thanks for popping in. Hey, Reverend Wingo, good to see you on Periscope. Thanks for popping in. Pam, hello. Good to see all the empowerment tribe in the space, in the place to be. If you would, take this opportunity now to share this broadcast out. Because as we talk about, our journey in this space of implicit biases, there's definitely something to learn from everybody's journey. And we don't profess to have all the answers. Let me tell you right now. We don't profess in any way to have all the answers. But what we did agree to do was to come and speak from the heart and be honest and transparent about our thoughts. This is a no judgment zone. And so anything anybody says, I will hold space for it here. And I even wanted to address something that happened last time. But we are going to hold space for anybody and everybody to say what they need to say so that we can try to get understanding. If people don't feel released to speak, how can we ever come to understanding? So share this out now. Now's the time. Let's get all the hearts and minds in the rooms that we can. And as we move forward, chat room folks, you know what to do. I'll definitely pull your comments and thoughts and questions into the conversation. So type away. So let's bring them in one by one so we can introduce or reintroduce, I guess, our guests to you. We will start with, I feel like I need to give them a heads up. So, Chase, coming to the man with the plan. First up in the lineup, Chase, how you doing, bud? Good to have you back in.
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Doing good. And you are where? Are you coming to us? What part of the country?
Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Albuquerque, New Mexico, in the house. All right, and next up, the lovely Sue coming in. And where are you dialing in from today?
I am joining you from just outside Seattle.
Just outside Seattle. And next, we're going to head to New York. Bam. Welcome back, Reggie Grayson. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Greetings from the village of Harlem.
All right. And next, we'll swing over to the south a little bit. Anthony Galdi, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
We're great. And you are coming to us from?
Atlanta, Georgia.
The ATL. That is one more who's going to ride in on your coattail with you. And Eva Jane Bunkley?
Yes.
Also coming to us from?
Metro Atlanta.
The Metro Atlanta area. So good to have everybody back. And thank you to all of those of you in the chat room. Thanks. Hey, Pam. Hey, Monique. Good to see you too. Everybody saying, hey, Reggie. Hey, they all got like favorites, just like the housewives. Hey! So everybody's here in their person. So we are going to do this a little straight no chaser style. I asked everybody to come back. Hey, Leola, to come back and talk about a few things that we first discussed last week, and then just kind of jump into where are we now? Where do we go from here? So I guess I'll open up with this question. Just really curious about any insights or observations, thoughts, musings even, that you all had based on our last live stream together. What was that experience like for you all? Anybody want to go first, or do I?
I will. I'm fine. Yeah. For me, it's just so amazing to be with a group of people where you hear different perspectives and different thoughts and because you walk away. I mean, we talked for what, 2.5 hours, however long it was. I mean, it was intense, but then you walk away and the conversation kept going and going and going in my head. And so it was fascinating. And as we entered into, what we entered into in this country, I felt like I was primed to talk to people. So I think that that moment for me, it sparked something in me that made conversation imperative. Mm-hmm. And so then as we entered into the craziness that we entered into, I felt like all I wanted to do was talk. So it was more important than I even realized, when we were in it. So yeah, that's kind of what my takeaway was.
That's awesome. Anybody else? Feel free to jump in, y'all. This is, like I told you, Round Tabletop meets you in my living room. So we don't have to. And the lady from the lovely lady from Seattle is recognized. We don't have to do that.
Speaking of Seattle, I too, like Anthony, went away more primed to have conversations, and immediately after that, a few teachers approached me to start book studies over the summer where we could learn more how to be better allies. And the 2 books we chose were the ones that are pretty much, I think, on top of everybody's list. So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluo, and then White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. And for some reason, those 2 book studies ended up back to back. And not to put anything against one or the other, but I find the conversation from Ijeoma easier to follow and to handle and to figure out my space in that. But Robin also, it's been interesting to have conversations with the teachers in the White Fragility group, and I encourage them to read books like How to Talk About Race and how to be anti-racist, because even though we're learning, Robin kind of points out from a white person's view, there are still some people who are hiding behind that and making the excuses, and things that we're learning now are just ways for people to hide. And so I think more work needs to be done. And hopefully when school starts in the fall, however it starts, we can be better prepared to just be aware and to help all of our students, not just the ones who are speaking up.
I think that's great. Those are 2 books of a few that I've done some shows and we've recommended. And I think what was kind of eye-opening for me when I got introduced to the anti-racism series, because they have them for like teenagers and anti-racist baby, like we don't cover everybody, right? Was this notion of not being racist, which anybody can be racist, right? Like there was this number that no, only white people can be racist. No, I mean, you look around the board, and I know that there's weight given to who seems to be or who is the dominant race by numbers, but that landscape's about to change, like as we continue growing in this country. And so this whole notion though of being anti-racist versus I'm not racist, versus anti-racist means you're going against, you're just not something, but you're combating something, like you're stepping against something. And I think that was something, a mindset, a paradigm shift for a lot of people who were trying to figure out their place, like, but I'm not racist, but are you doing anything against what you see? And one of the things that I've been encouraged to see is, I don't know about you all, some of these videos you see on Facebook and as you're scrolling, this one neighborhood, I think it might have been in New Jersey or somewhere up in that area, where one of the white female neighbors was giving the black family a hard time about, I think, fireworks or something, but everybody was shooting fireworks in their driveway. But she was giving this family a hard time. And as she stacked the narrative about her complaint, it wasn't all in truth. Like she was adding things to it. And then other neighbors were starting to come out and go, no, that's not what happened. Like, you know, so then you see other white neighbors coming out and going, no, no, no. They were checking her. And I thought this right here, this is the thing that I think as a person of color, people were hoping to see, right? We were hoping to see that we're not the only ones going, hey, does anybody else think this sucks? Does anybody else think this is wrong? Does anybody else want to throw in a hand on this? And so I believe that we can attribute that back to this mindset of not just, I'm not racist, but anti-racist. Like I'm going to speak against those things. Anybody else want to share from their time, what they got out of their time together last month?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in. Is someone else speaking?
Yeah, but go ahead, Reggie, and then I'll come to you, Eva.
Okay, I'll go quickly. I just want to first touch on one thing you said, Jeanette. I think that when people say that minorities can't be racist, I think where they are talking, it's not about numbers, it's about power. And when so we look at structural racism, and then people sort of in power can exercise that power, and that's the racism. So even if we look at, for example, in South Africa, white people are very, very, very small percentage of the population, but they are still, even to this day, in power. So they can exact racism against other people, but it would be very difficult for a Black person who racially is in the majority to exact that same type of racist act against a white person. So we can be prejudiced, we can prejudge people based on all kinds of factors, but it's pretty impossible, I think, to be racist in that regard.
Pause before we move to your next point, because I don't lose your thought for the next point. But I do want us to go, let's dance with it. Let's dance with it. What do you say to the person who says, by definition, the word isn't about power? By definition, the word is about a person who shows discrimination or feels discrimination or acts on prejudice against other races. Okay, so just by that, there are people who, in conversations I've had, have said there have been times when I'm the minority in the situation, I'm the minority in the circumstance, and the balance of power is not with me because I'm not a person of color. And because of that, I was mistreated. And because of that, I was this or that. So how do you balance that behavioral thinking in those circumstances with the definition of the word, right? And not just our social understanding or belief? How would you balance that?
I think I would be curious to know what the specific circumstance was. Because, for example, a white person can choose to move to a Black neighborhood and feel or literally be treated in a certain way, but they typically might have options to move to many other neighborhoods that are not Black. Whereas in many situations, Black people can't just move to a neighborhood or, and not face different problems. I have encountered situations where white people say, oh, well, I went to this thing and I was the only Black person I was the only white person in this situation, and they said this and that to me. But when we talk about systems and structures and organizations that are put in place in this society, they were put in place to maintain power structures. Yeah. So even now, when we talk about racial equity, that's talking about power. So it's not just about increasing numbers.
I love that you brought in that dynamic, but I also wonder about, and I think this is part of the breakdown of communication. When you start talking about the balance of power in terms of legislation and in terms of laws and things that right? But and I'll tell you, because you said I don't know about this situation, but this was a person, it wasn't just about moving to a neighborhood. They moved for a job. And so their whole work environment, right, was this scenario, this situation. So within the confines of that vocation, they weren't in power because they weren't the headship. They weren't, you see what I'm saying? And their money was tied to the circumstance or situation. So in that way, the balance of power was not in their favor, right? Even though if you go outside that bubble. And so I think that's, this is great. This is that thing that I want to talk about, because if we negate somebody's experience, are we doing what we're accusing people of doing to us, right? If we're saying, well, it don't count if it happens like that, but it will count if it happens like this, or you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but I'm wondering on the ears of people is that what's happening? Now, continue with your whole thought about where you were going. I want to make sure that we, you know what I'm saying? Like, I want to come back and go, remember when you said that thing? I want to, like, right when we hit them, because this is good. Keep going.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a valid point. Thank you for bringing it up. So the only other thing I wanted to say was shortly after our panel, I was on another panel, a corporate diversity and inclusion panel. Someone asked me to be on, and it was around LGBTQ. Because it was Pride Month and it was their LGBTQ D&I group. And there the talk was more about allyship. And so there were a lot of people on the call globally who did not identify as LGBTQ, but wanted to know what they could do as an ally, what being a good ally meant. And so it was kind of in the same space. And just quickly, so my one recommendation was, you may not think there's anyone in your family who's LGBTQ. It doesn't matter. You may not think there's anyone in your family who's whatever, but there's so many different marginalized groups, be they women or people of color or what have you. There has to be someone you love who is a member of one of those groups. And so what if a member of that group was in the coffee room in their job, and someone was making a comment that made that person you love feel bad? What would you want someone else in that room to do? How would you want that ally to step up for your loved one? So that's what, and we all are in situations where we can be allies for other people. So that's kind of the framework. When people say, I don't know what to do, how can I help? If you put it in that personalized way, maybe then you'll say, okay, I would want someone to stick up and say, yo, that's not cool or whatever. So anyway, so I've been in this headspace for a long time.
Yeah, no, I love that. Now I have just a weird, like, little ancillary question. Were you asked to be on this group because you were Black and or gay, or what was the reason you were asked? Because let me tell you why I'm asking. Because a lot of Black people now are asked to be on these panels. Like, we need a diversity panel. Tag, you're it. Like, what if I don't feel like I'm not in the space for this? You know what I mean? Like, I think we need to think about that. Hello, workforce. Hello, folks. That we're also processing. And so while you do want the insights of Black people, you might just want to do a check-in, because you might not want them at the table. There's that, if they're not ready to have these conversations. And they just might not be equipped, right, to do those things. That's why I asked.
Yeah, no, the person who asked me is himself gay and Black and male. And he called out his company for the lack of things that they were doing with regard to LGBT. And so he put this panel together, and I helped him find some other speakers. And it was a very large real estate company. And so he wanted someone who was gay, Black, and who worked in real estate.
Got it. I got you. So this is somebody, you know, interestingly enough, a friend of mine who's in real estate here, their company, which is a large company, is doing the same thing. So I'm glad to see that, because that impacts, when you think about real estate, it impacts, why would you, she was talking about the types of questions people ask. Is this neighborhood walk friendly? And they're not just talking about, like, can I just go to the store and back and not sweat? That's not what they're talking about. They're like, can I go to the store and come back and not die? Like, that's what I'm talking about, right? And so, but if realtors aren't thinking these things, or they're not thinking, you know, what the atmosphere is of this neighborhood, that's right. So, you know, we're going to come to you next. Thank you, Reggie. Very valid points. And I hope you didn't mind dancing with that, but that's what I want us to do, is to consider. Let's bring in late but great, the Wade Dunn Jr. How you doing, buddy? You're muted. Yep. And
is that better?
Yep, there you are.
All right, sorry about that. Hey guys, how everybody's on today?
We're good.
I've been listening to the conversation. I think you guys, I love these conversations. I really do. They really, really good.
We're going to come to you next. Eva's going to share her insights. We're just asking your insights and impressions from our time together last month. Ms. Eva?
You said you're asking the impressions from the time last month as far as
Yeah,
what happened since then.
Eva's going to share hers, and then we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess since that time, just thinking about everything that I've seen in the media and then just personally, I'm still optimistic, but I still have kind of, I guess, a level of, I'm not going to say caution, but I don't want to get overly excited about everything that's happening. I'm glad for all of the progress, and I'm really encouraged by these types of conversations. I had a very dear friend reach out to me. We've been friends for probably 25 years. She's an older Caucasian woman, and she sent me an email, and she said, I've been wanting to ask you about this for weeks. And apparently we had a conversation when we were riding in the car about, I was concerned about police violence and anything happening to my 2 Black sons, just when they started to kind of navigate the world more so on their own. And her thought to me at the time, she said, was, oh, well, you shouldn't have anything to worry about because your children are so well behaved. No one would ever mistake them for, somebody who would cause trouble, or they would never fall, victims of anything like that. And she said, I just kind of pursed my lips and just kind of moved on. And she said she brought that up. It came back up in her because she said, what was your thought of me at that time? Did you think that was a wall that couldn't be breached? Did you think that's something that I would never understand? Did you think me to be dull or just totally, not being able to relate to what you were experiencing or feeling as a mother of Black boys? And I don't remember the conversation at all. But it obviously touched her because she said now, with a little bit more reading, a little bit more understanding, watching videos of these things happening, becoming more aware on her end, she said she gets it now. And she wanted to revisit that conversation with me. And she said, because you're somebody that she said, obviously you're somebody I trust. And I was like, well, there has to be some credence to it, maybe. But she said at the time, she just didn't get it. And now she does. So with all that's happening, I'm glad that a lot more people that aren't minority and kind of live it every day, and it's just, another Tuesday or Wednesday in our lives, those are seeds planted, and now they're taking root and sprouting. And that's what she said. Something has sprouted in me. So that makes me, optimistic. And I mean, even with some of the other decisions, even today with Native peoples being more recognized as some of these treaties that were not upheld by the United States government, I think that it's the beginning of a new dawn. And I really just hope the conversations and the progress continues for minorities and for more equality in this nation.
Yeah, well said. I will say that I'm proud to have heard her check herself and ask questions. Did you think I was disconnected? Did I come off like just completely out of touch? I have a lot of respect for that. I have a lot of respect for that. Wade, your impressions, observations from our time together before? You have to unmute yourself though.
So, all right, is that better? All right, cool. So, last time we spoke, I think it was a good conversation. I think it was a great conversation we had. I think the funny thing is the climate kind of, past 30 days, a little bit different than it is now. So with those things happening, I think there has been a lot of conversations. I had some friends of mine over the years who weren't Black that reach out to try to understand what's going on. I think that we're in a good space right now. I think it's important to have a plan moving forward. I think as a group, not just Black people, but just minorities, those who have those who have basically been, sidelined. I think we have to have a plan. And I think that's where we are. We have the attention now. Now I think we have to figure out or move forward with a plan. I think the thing for me, I think is going to be first is November. I think you got to get your elected officials, and I'm not talking about just on national. I think on a local level, you have to start locally, because if you can change the ordinances and laws locally, that's going to impact you first. And I think if we can kind of start getting some of these seasonal politicians that kind of have not really doing things for the people as the Constitution was written. I think we can start seeing some changes, and we can take that from the local to the state, and even if we can flip some national, it'll be great. But I think that we're at the end of the old guard, and I think that we have to recognize that. And if we can capitalize on this right now, I think the next 10 to 15 years, I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I think in the next 15 years, when she's getting to about 19, 20, we'll be living in a different type of America. But
I'm curious about your daughter. How many children do you have?
Oh, me and my wife, we have 7. So she's our youngest. I have a 23-year-old. We have 4 girls and 3 boys.
Bless the saint of your wife. Saint that is your wife. What are the conversations you have with your children around race, or are you having conversations?
Oh yeah. My kids, especially the older ones, most of we call them the top 5, because the older 5 are between the ages of 17 and 23. Mm-hmm. So my oldest, good majority of them are actively involved. Especially my oldest son, he lives in Columbus, and he's actively involved down there with the protests. He's actively involved with making changes. He's not one of those ones where he just jumped on board when it started kicking off. He's been down there for 3 years trying to work things out. He's 20. So we have these conversations. We have with our younger, especially my younger son. He's 10, but he's very influential. He's really asked a lot of questions since the George Floyd thing, and asked a lot of questions. He's been reading a lot. We've always. So give you an example, when they had the I think it was the 55th anniversary of the Selma Bloody Sunday. So what we did was we took our kids down there to march with them. And it was packed. It was crowded. And funny thing is, we took 5 out of 7, because 2 older girls weren't there, but the 5 that went, 4 that went, they, it was a huge impact. They walked across the bridge. They was able to see, Selma really hasn't changed much when you look at the space down there. So this isn't new to them, right? This isn't new. It's coming to the forefront, but it isn't new. It just helps continue the conversations that we've been having. In reference to just things that have been, we tell our boys now, like, when you go out, we always tell them, so you got to be presentable. You have to be presentable. When I get pulled over by the police just because, I fit a description, I have to know, I had my boys in the car one time. They had to show them how to deal with this, right? Not all police are bad. Not all, white people are bad as media will like you to believe. It's not true. What it is, it's a small group of people that have a big voice. And in that space, what happens is you think it's everybody. And we had to show the kids, like, everybody isn't like that. Everybody isn't like that. You're going to come across a few, but everybody isn't like that. But we've been having some really good conversations. My 10-year-old, he's really been, he actually recently said, Dad, I need to take a break from social media because it's becoming too much. He said it's becoming too much with it's just so much, we on social media, we know how it is. It's just so much, it's like now that we have the voice of people, it's like everything's coming out right now, right? Every single issue we have is coming out right now. And it can be a lot, because if, as a young mind, if you don't have a way of kind of isolating it and just kind of putting it into pockets.
Filter all of that. How do we expect them to filter all of that? Like everybody, I like to say that every thought in your head doesn't have to come out your mouth or be on your page. Go somewhere and whatever that is, and don't throw up all over the people, And I'm sorry to jump in, but I do want to jump around and discuss a few more things. So I appreciate you sharing kind of where you are with your children. I think that was an important piece that we didn't kind of get into last time, was how do we acclimate our kids to this? Eva shared, that, I don't know if you were on for this. Did you hear her story about she talking to one of her white female Okay. And so those things about what protocol is, how you have to be when you're pulled over by the cops. I mean, that's a real thing about how do you assume the position. I remember Anthony talking about before, thinking that, oh my God, what if my son gets pulled over if I just tell him you got a white dad? Like, and us having to tell him, unfortunately, gives him nothing, gives him no advantage, right? But the reality of just where all of this really is, I'm curious to know from a personal standpoint, because you brought up some very good points, Wade, about what we need to do as a society and as a community. I firmly believe that the transition of our community starts with individuals and our families and our immediate circles, and that brings out into our communities, and then that kind of ripples out into, our states and so on and so forth. I'm interested about you all personally. What personal charges did you take on? What things did you try to either advance, to either build bridges or to advance understanding for others? Reggie, you said, I joined this board, and I didn't want to miscall what it was, but to help build bridges in the workplace. What all are you all doing personally? I'll start with the share, and then we'll just go down the line. Chase, Sue, Tony, Eva, Wade, back to Reggie. So I have a very close friend of the family who is, comes from Italian immigrant background, probably maybe second generation, but is kind of a patriarch of his family, who is that guy who just sends out emails like, look at this, read that, here's this and that, and I think I may have mentioned it last time, but I kind of had just put that on mute. I didn't even open them. I wasn't even doing anything. And I said, after our little broadcast and that whole speech I gave about being a bridge and all that stuff, I said, well, let's just dive into one or two, And I did, and I was sad that I did, but I decided this is a conversation. Actually, let me tell the truth. I sat with it for a minute, and I listened to my own heartbeat to figure out, is this something that I need to get involved with, right? Because every fight isn't our fight. But I did feel that because of relationship and because of the impact that he has on a whole family, right? Like, you shape the minds of a whole family. Do I invest here? So I did. I want to tell you, we have had some of the best conversations. Now, it's a little sketchy in the beginning. We were coming in on two wheels sometimes. But we really listened to each other. And there were times when I'm going to tell you, I was like, crazy. But I listened, and I just let it kind of be. And then I just said, kind of in a softer way, well, riddle me this. And then we went back and did a different direction, right? And the shift of perspective and finding, and what I saw was, because my whole thing is about mindset. What I saw was a willingness to look for where we touch and agree. Well, yeah, I understand that. And then once it was almost like once he could find where we touch and agree, then he could open up a little bit more to hearing more and understand. Like, me saying, when you say things like this, it sounds like this. And then there was a great broadcast called Hard Conversations with a Black Man. I don't know and I can't think of the guy's name right now. He's a former football player, but he had, who's the actor? He says, all right, all right, all right. What's that actor's name? I got you.
Matthew McConaughey.
Yes, Matthew McConaughey. So he was on there with him, and Matthew McConaughey was asking him all these questions, basically from his white experience. And they were having these really deep conversations. So a lot of the things that we had talked about, and I just, let me send you something, which I think went against family protocol. I don't know, because you don't send him stuff. He just blasts everybody else. Check this out. Let me know what you think. And it just opened up another level of conversation. And we stayed on the phone for over an hour one time, and now we're having these constant conversations. And even when I broke down this whole thing, they were talking about the lack of fathers and Black fathers in the home. And when I had to take it back to how even in our social structure, they set up programs and social service programs that would actually more so reward families for not having a Black father in the home. And then you start looking at what that means. If I'm going to get more money to feed my kids and do this for them and do that for them, if you're not around, like you have to look at the whole system of these things. And he was like, "Wow, I didn't even know that was happening." Like and you know me, former journalist, so I'm giving you links, I'm giving you sources, I'm giving you everything. So it's like it said. And so for me, what I took away from it was, let's keep having the conversation. Now, when I'm tired, I'm not having a conversation. I'm just gonna be honest. I have some people approach me and I'm in a fatigue. I don't have any more to give you. Please go read and study on your own. Here's some links, here's some books, and when I can get back in the game, then I can. And I wonder if you all feel too, as you share what you've done, if you feel this shift. Tony, I think, was saying, when it comes to like the LGBTQIA plus community, like sometimes that was a feeling there too about, I can't do all the work. Like I can't do all the work. And I think you were talking about your family members or maybe something like, I can't help you understand everything. I can't just, you're going to have to do some work. Right. And so I wonder if you all sense that too. But what have you been doing individually? We'll go to Chase next.
Individually, I've kind of shifted mindsets. So a little bit about my background. I kind of come from a pastoring background, and when you're in a pastoring background, you're in a mode of teaching and being an expert. And after going through seminary and having your mind shoved in a whole bunch of facts, I did chaplaincy, and it's a complete different shift. And there's a lot of listening and a lot of not invalidating experiences because you haven't experienced that. And then this last month happened, and people were nice enough to have conversations with me. And then I started, of course, Facebook wars on certain issues as well. And then that blew up in my face. I was like, oh, okay, not smart. And so my friend said to me after a long conversation, Chase, maybe you should be a chaplain to people rather than pastoring them right now. Because maybe people need a chaplain to acknowledge that what they're feeling is real rather than what you see. And maybe you'll learn more. It's just been a really different shift for me. And ironically, I'm getting a job as a chaplain now. So I'm going, oh, okay, hey, this is real life, and I can use that in my real life too. So
I think that's powerful. I think we undervalue listening and holding space for people because it doesn't feel like, most of us, knowing most of you want people to be okay. You want people to be better. You want people to feel better. You want people to do better. And you want to empower people. But sometimes that's not ours to give. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's what they need is, can you allow me to feel in your presence this discomfort and push past your own discomfort of seeing me in discomfort to just let me be with you, and just let me sit here with you. And I'm so glad that you ended up being a part of this, because I can't imagine because I'm in ministry too. I can't imagine how you can be around varied people and not have that superhero ability.
It's in my theology, like to fix stuff. I love fixing stuff, and I love fixing people, and I love here's a resource. How are you feeling here? And that's not what.
But listening is fixing in a way. It really is, because here's the problem. The equation is, I've got this problem. I'm trying to get from here to solving it. You think fixing it is, let me make that go away. And you want to make it go away the way you want it to go away. Right. But sometimes if you just will, and I don't mean this at you personally, I'm
no.
everybody in general, if you'll just shut up and let me get my pain out, Let me tell you my anger. Let me tell you my frustration. Let me tell you my hurt. Let me tell you my fear. And here's the thing. If it's really about me, you're not going to try to put a Band-Aid on it yet. Because really for me to be fixed, I got to get all the goo out of it. I got to like let all the goo get out of there. And then once that's out of there, then I can receive healing. Then I can receive ointment. Then I can receive a Band-Aid. But if you slap that Band-Aid on me too fast, what I end up feeling like is you're not really trying to deal with my wound. And that my wound is causing you pain. And so before you really want to be in pain, I'm just telling you the perception. But I happen to know some of the backstory and the conversation. I don't know what y'all talk, but I know that you've been having conversations. And so what that says to me is that you are able to do that. You are able to listen and to admit, I might not know everything about it. So let me hear. And then you're also a resource, Chase. Your life experience is a resource. Your life experience is a resource. And I happen to know that from the person that you had a conversation with. I don't know details. I just know that that person says, I've been learning too. So I think that's a win-win. And so don't ever think that you're not having impact because you can't put the 12-point plan you have in place, on it.
Right.
But that you're just willing to be and love. The first commandment is love, right?
Right.
Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Well, love God and then love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I think you got that a lot. Thank you for sharing that. Eva Jane, what have you done specifically in your own life?
Ooh, okay, specifically. Right now I am being a mom and kind of monitoring a lot of what my sons are going through.
Your sons are their ages?
14 and 16. And I think one of the things, there's a lot of aspects of what's happening now with the pandemic that have been, very politicized. And we're back, like, for instance, with sports. They're back out playing golf. They're back out playing baseball. The baseball thing is, it's interesting because the social distancing aspect of it is can't happen when they're playing. But as parents and everything, as we're traveling to these different sides of town, it's very different how the people in those communities are doing, the face masks, the social distancing, even within, the stands, that type of thing, where we are, the people willing to just kind of come up close to you and start talking to you. And I'm like, okay, back up. It shouldn't be, everybody, it seems like, should be kind of paying attention to what's happening.
And it's a hot spot. Y'all are a hot spot.
Exactly. And then as minorities, how it's impacting minority communities, sometimes I think people who kind of dismiss it, I think it's a bit disrespectful when it comes to that. And I don't think it should be politicized, but I mean, my son, he's just like, I'm not trying to catch corona. I don't care what, and we're looking at going back to school. So what I'm going through personally as a mom and looking at where we're moving in that kind of, it's intertwined with the racial climate, the health issues that we're dealing with. We live in a predominantly Black and minority neighborhood. I think the percentage of white students at my child's school is probably like maybe .something%. It's primarily Black, Latino, and Vietnamese. So just being in our community and just kind of navigating that, I think we all kind of understand. As far as any conversations that's happening over social media with anybody kind of across that spectrum, I don't really get into that when I'm, out and about, although I've had have interaction with some medical professionals. We're doing lots of doctor's visits in preparation, and sometimes political views kind of come up. I'm like, I don't think it's the time or place to try to navigate that, because it just hasn't been for me. So I've been judicious about how I interact. We, as a family, put a sign up. I may have talked about it last time, on our front yard that said Black Lives Matter in very, very bright orange. So thousands of cars. We're on a very busy street. Lots of times, as I'm even like not even outside, I'll hear people honking as they go by. So, you know, it's kind of a statement. I think messaging matters. I think the more people see things and the more they might bring it up to somebody else. I may never hear that conversation, but they might, oh my goodness, all these Black Lives Matter signs are all around. They might bring it up to somebody who they think would have a similar viewpoint, and yet they feel that pushback, that anti-racism, that, well, why does that bother you? Shouldn't they matter? What, you know, so that's kind of been where I am. I do what I can. In the meantime, I'm looking at different things. We're thinking about college. There's a college in Mississippi that my son's coach is kind of tied into when it comes to baseball. And I'm like, okay, well, they are taking the Confederate flag off their flag. Maybe I'd be slightly more comfortable, but I don't know, because on the cusp of anything, there's all of that. So I'm just like, I don't even know if I would even want you in that state. So those are the types of internal conversations that kind of raises my blood pressure a little bit. And I have to go into kind of my own safe woosah place on my own, because it can become overwhelming.
I remember, oops, I didn't mean to do that to you. I remember a friend saying that it just, as we talk about how this can impact your life, saying that, you know, I used to date, you know, across the spectrum. I was like, me too. I'm EEOC all the way with dating. But now you have to really think that out, right? And not because of necessarily the people that you might be involved with, but the people that have a problem with the people you might become involved with, you know? And so just how you were saying, like from baseball to this to that, like our lives, like I wanted to drive home to see my mother. I haven't seen my mother in months. It's a 10-hour drive. There's no way in heck that I'm going to drive 10 hours by myself now through Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina. There's no way I'm going to make that trek by myself. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I get it. I do get it. I'm going to bounce over to Tony. Well, I know when we talked last, one of the things that you were sharing concern over was about your son too. And raising him in a way that is thoughtful and broad and 3D in every way. And how has our conversation and those things impacted you in that area?
Well, it's been an interesting ride for the past few weeks. I'm still in the gathering phase, and I know people want me to be more vocal and people have voiced that they want me to be more vocal and stuff. But it really is, it's so deep to me. There's so much to unpack and understand. So I'm still gathering. I did have, I had some young people step forward and take an experience with me and not divulge all of the information, just pick pieces to create a narrative that painted me as someone that I am not. And it was very, very upsetting to me. It was very, and I know, I reacted immediately, which was not necessarily the right thing to do, but unfortunately, I think my ego was engaged, and I felt attacked, and I felt like, so I responded, which then, you know, got me into some hot water. And then I had to walk away, and I just immediately reached out to people that I thought could posit wisdom, experience something to help me kind of wrap my brain around it, and taking into account their ages and their desire to be a part of the conversation. It's been really cathartic for me to just understand that need to scream, because it's not just about that person's experience. It's about generations. And so I mean, I've been so fortunate because I've had amazing people, you know, just kind of walking me through this and helping me understand it. And you know, I in one of the conversations, I said, the way that I have been brought up to work through things is for everyone to come to the table with the truth, with the facts. Like, this is what it was, this is what happened, this is what, and then we converse, and then we find our way to understanding each other, you know? And I had to realize that experience and truth, what is truth, is connected to experience, is connected to, which is not just your experience with me. It's your experience. It's your global experience. It's your universal experience. And so it's been really, really challenging, cathartic, exhausting, disheartening, and uplifting. You know, I mean, what we were talking about, you know, when he talks about years, when you guys talk about years that it's going to take, I think Wade said something about that, about, you know, 15 years and, you know, in 20 years. So we're just starting to understand it. And for me, a person, I mean, you've known me most of my life. And I was shocked at the accusation. And then I was shocked at, once I started digging, I had to understand something on a whole different level than I ever thought I even needed to. I mean, they just thought, no, I'm the guy, like, I'm the dude. I get it. I totally get it. And I'm here for you. And I'll stand up. I will stand in front of anybody and get kicked in the face, you know, if I see injustice anywhere. And I've always been like that. But it's been deep. It's been really deep. So I'm still gathering.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to speak until I can do it eloquently and you know what I mean? I want to be a part of change, and I think really for me, being an effective part of change is really having all the tools in my tool belt, or as many as I can right now, so that I can be more effective.
I think you're doing the work. And the main thing about doing the work is that it's going to be messy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we all want to do the work and we want clean hands the whole time we do the work. Like, we love to do the work and just have clean hands. It's just not, that's right. But when you understand, and I've done that same thing with a different, in a different vein, where I had to get feedback, and, you know, it can put you down. You know, I asked my friends one time, I was going through something, I asked my friends, and the feedback they got, man, that thing kept me in the bed for a good 2 days. And then I had to realize, even though that's where I've been, that doesn't have to be the buttoned up end of the story. Like, I am allowed to evolve and change and grow just like everybody else is. I hope we are not today the person we were a month ago. I hope we're not today the person we were a year ago. You know what I mean? Like, we should be on this ever evolving wheel of growth and change. And if we're not, something's wrong. So the fact, like, kudos to you for the fact that you will stand and face the harrowing winds and the truth bombs that come, right? Because that means that you care enough to see where in me is the thing I can't see, or where in me is a thing that I'm just not communicating clearly, or, you know, whatever it is. And so I hope that people watching and listening will take a cue from that, actually, that's the work. It's not, you know, yes, you can have conversations with other people, and that's great, but listen, it's the work that you do for yourself first that's going to be the greatest gift that you give the society. And
also, going back to my son, you know, it's imperative to me, just because of the way I'm built, but I have to understand this and be effective as a father to a Black son, as a white man. You know, I mean, there's just, it's so beyond important to me. It's so beyond, you know.
Yes.
It's a lot.
Yes. Well, but you know this, you understand the importance and the weight of it, because you're not just shaping your mind, you're shaping your son's mind and his life and how he engages and what his relationships will look like. So,
and what his expectations for white people what they need to be. That I want to be an example of what he should expect in people.
Yeah.
And you know, so yeah, there's layers of it.
I have a mentor that works with me in media, and he'd gone to private school, you know, all his life, black male, and he's, you know, going to college now. And he came back, and when this whole thing dropped, I said, so how's it working for you in your circles? Like, what's going on? He was like, Miss Jeanette, I didn't realize, like, he was bubble wrap. He had no idea that some of his friends felt the way they felt, or believed some of the things that they believed, or that his private school status meant nothing if you're out and about and you're in your hoodie and your jeans, or not even a hoodie. Like, we always go through the hoodie, but like, you can just be on a t-shirt and your jeans, right? And so when I saw that awakening in him, like, I got to get this together. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I was like, yeah, baby, that's what we've been trying to tell you. You felt that all of this exposure you got to, great education, all this stuff meant something that it would never cover. For you, because as long as you get that beautiful chocolate skin, until mindsets and things change, it was inspiring and heartbreaking all at the same time. It's kind of like when you tell kids, there's no Santa. You know what I mean? Like, there's no Santa. What? Right? It's that whole thing. Like, no, this is the real world. Sorry, this is the world we live. And so I get it, but I applaud you for sticking in and continuing to do the work. Who wants to go next with their observation? And then we're gonna share on our last test that we took that we didn't get to share last week. Susu. Oh, hold on, let me unmute you. There you go.
Okay. I was in the same mindset as Wade's son, just getting overwhelmed with all the social media, kind of crushing myself under it and wondering, I'm just one person, what the bleep can I do? And like you, Jeanette, I just sat with it and I thought, okay, I do have, my social media platforms are not humongous, but they're pretty robust. And I just decided to use my social media platforms to help amplify other voices. So weeding out messages that are hateful. And, you know, people have said, you need to have both positions in order to form an opinion. And I said, no, I don't. I know what the other opinions are. I know what my opinion is. And I think it's my job here now today to just amplify voices that I think need to be amplified without getting political. And so I found some really great resources. One of my favorites on Twitter, they're very active, is Black Parenting Magazine. And they are just going gangbusters with offering positive and helpful ways to talk to children of all ages. And even though they're geared toward Black families, I think that we can all learn from some of the points that they put out. So that's been my goal and my mission, to just spotlight, you know, businesses or voices or messages that I think could help build a bridge for the future and stay away from the divisive voices that are already getting too much airplay.
I like that. I'm a firm believer in that. I'm not going to shout you down, but I am going to, I got you, Tony. I am going to be as vocal and as loud, because I think what happens is the negative voices scream and we get tired and we just sit down and shut up because we're just, but we need to tag each other in and keep sending out those positive voices. Who's the last part? Wade, would it be you then? Well, we talked about some of the things that you were doing. I want to go ahead. Let's pull up our results from the sexuality implicit bias test. And Reggie had to jump off. He had a hard cutoff. And so thank you all for sticking with, but I do want to share. And I will put up what the national stats were, and then we can talk about where we stood in this. 25% of people had a strong automatic preference for straight people compared to gay, 24% a moderate automatic preference, 15% a slight automatic preference for straight people, 18% little to no preference. By the way, that was where I fell. 8% had a slight automatic preference for gay people, 7%, and you can see how the numbers decrease, and so on and so forth. So let's go back now and let's talk about our individual findings. I'll start with Chase on the top. Just roll around. You're muted though, bud.
So I had a slight automatic preference for straight people. And to be honest with you, that made me really happy because I used to be really homophobic. Mainly because just what I didn't know. And then I've had friends after high school and in undergrad who came out to me that I had known for years, and then they came out to me. They're like, "Hey, I got this thing to tell you." I was like, "What? Did you kill somebody? Like, what's going on?" And they're like, "No, I'm gay." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Just new information." And so I guess for me, the test was confirming to me because I think I had to change my mind a little bit in terms of like, okay, what does this mean rather than what do people tell me that it means? And then since then, that was when I was in my early 20s. I'm 33 now. Yeah, 33. It's been an exercise of just learning things that LGBTQ people go through that I will never have to deal with as a straight guy. And so, okay, well, that's different. I never thought about that, and trying to listen more.
Yeah. Listen to you listening. Listen to you listening.
I'm trying. It's really hard, and there's a lot of times where I bristle, and that's not true. And then people go, "Oh, well, maybe." Yeah. So there's a lot of that.
Well, first of all, thank you, because you don't have to share anything about where you've been on any matter or any subject, but the fact that, in fact, I saw Savala say, "I commend this panel for being so open, for having this much needed conversation." So thank you for being honest. And let me speak to the thing that I guess people can guess, but when you're in ministry, when you come through ministry, especially, when you come through hardcore, what is your denomination?
Interdenominational. I grew up Presbyterian, and but before that, I was actually super fundamentalist, and then I went kind of Presbyterian route. And after my theological training, I would say I'm ecumenical.
Yeah, and so I think that's interesting because having to follow that path with you in terms of ministry, there's so much that will come at you in different ways, and I've had to swim in it and then find my space. And you have to find your space, because ultimately for me, it always goes back to my relationship with God and what is God speaking to me, not what is God speaking to me through other people's mouths.
Yeah.
Filters. Absolutely. So thank you for sharing that, Chase. Musu.
My survey results show that I have a moderate automatic preference for gay people over straight people, and this was no surprise to me. In my life, I would say the majority of my close friends are gay men. It started when I moved to New York City as a 19-year-old, and I tried to think about what that meant. And I'm 56 now, and I can still count the majority of my best friends are gay men. And some of it has to do with community theater that we did and meeting so many wonderful people. But from my time in New York City in my early 20s, I would say I felt safer with my gay friends than I did with my straight friends. I don't know why. It just felt to me, as somebody trying to find my own identity, that I was more easily accepted for who I was. And to this day, the people who keep more in touch with me, I mean, thanks to Facebook and social media, but are my gay friends. And I don't know what it's like to be gay, so I can't go into the mindset of that. But I think the time that I felt most part of a family is with my gay friends.
So thank you for sharing your experience and then your results as well. We'll pop down to Wade. You are unmuted.
All right, cool. So I had no automatic preference between straight or gay people. I think for me, I think the way that I think of things is real simple. I think first for everybody, whether you're gay, you're straight, you're black, you're white, Latino, first we're humans, right? Before we can do anything else, human nature is the key. So it doesn't matter if you're gay for me, if you're straight, if you're white, you're black, you're Latino. At the end of the day, you put yourself in the person's shoes and what I want to be in that position, right? What I want to be, we have the situation with the Latinos being held in cages, by the southern border. The question is, do I want to be there? We have, black people being profiled by police. Do I want to be there? You have white people being, terrorized because they're white. Simply because I had a guy talk to you recently that had a Trump flag, right, just flying out front. And when you talk to people and you get past that, you realize that we're all the same, right? We all the same. At the end of the day, we all want, we're all fighting for what? For love, joy, peace, happiness. We want to be stable. And I think that when we can get past our filters of even, I grew up in a church. I'm a former pastor, actually. I had a church in Baltimore for years before I moved down here to Atlanta 12 years ago. So I understand the ministry side of it. But at the end of the day, even in the ministry side of it, the thing that in the Bible, what it talks about the most is love. And I think that if we understand that first, before I get to your title, your position, your sexual orientation, your race, I have to understand that end of the day, we're all human, right? When we die and we go into the grave and our skin is gone and our organs are all deteriorated and gone, all they have are the skeleton and the bones. They can't determine unless they do a DNA test what race you are, what you are. They can determine if you're, male or female. But outside of that, they can't get into your mind. They can't get into your thoughts. They can't get into your beliefs. They can't. It's humanity at the end of the day. So when I deal with people first, and it's hard because sometimes, especially growing up in ministry, we're the ministry, the Bible, in my opinion, is used a lot of time as a tool to tell you how you should think about certain things before you experience it. And I think that it's a great tool if we understand that the tool was about love. It wasn't about all this control stuff. And I think that if I had to teach myself how to get to a place where humanity is first, when I come to a person, humanity is first, regardless of anything else, humanity is first. And I think if I get to that place, I can deal with a person from a standpoint of human to human, right? And then as we get deeper into thoughts, a lot of times our thoughts are formed by our experiences. It's formed by our different things, such as our upbringing, what we're taught. We have kids. We all have kids, and usually what we teach our kids is what was taught to us, right? A lot of times, some things we do the opposite of. Like I didn't like that growing up, so I'm gonna do this different. So for me, yeah, just having the understanding of I don't have any automatic preference between the two. End of the day, I was happy about that because I was nervous. I was like, oh man, hope I don't have a preference. But because I try really hard to try to just deal with people as humans first. Understand we do have struggles, not neglecting the struggles or the different issues we all have through our life. But understand that at the end of the day, let me hear you as a human first, and then we can move forward with trying to figure out everything else after that.
Got you. Unfortunately, the two members of our LGBTQIA++ community had to fall off before I could get to them. Jay says filters of conditioning. Yes. Here. And so I asked Reggie to send me his stuff, and I've asked Tony to send me his stuff as well. So Reggie's results, I can't see. Oh, it says you're described as suggests that you have a strong automatic preference for gay people over straight people, which I don't think would take us by surprise if you are saying that you are of this great gay community. I don't have Tony's yet, and I asked them if there was anything that they wanted to share. I do want to go back to something that Reggie said at the end of the show. But Eva, do you remember what your results were?
Okay, I'm really trying. I know that it was a preference towards straight. I want to say it was slight, but it might have been, I was trying to I'm like, I know I screenshotted it. But anyway, I can say, I think it was slight, but I was not surprised that it was the preference where it was. I was kind of like,
Slight.
I think I was slight towards straight.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't surprising to me. I mean, I was raised under a very, very kind of strict Christian background that was almost strict towards just very performance-oriented. Kojic, if people are familiar with Kojic, which is, I guess, in the kind of Pentecostal type of faith. So I'm still kind of working beyond some of the teaching that I had when I was young. I'm sure that lots of ministries have evolved in how they kind of feel about certain groups of people. But back then when I was coming up, it was very black and white as far as what was right, what was wrong, who was right, who was wrong. But then, and still, I work in the beauty industry, and a lot of the men, as far as makeup artistry and that kind of thing, and when I'm going to meet new people in my industry, a lot of the men, especially, are gay. And so I think, and a lot of the men that I've worked with in the industry have been gay. There have been very few straight men that I've met in my industry, in my particular field of makeup artistry. There are some. So I think that my interactions with people, especially gay men, and have been, I've formed some wonderful relationships. So I think when I saw the slight preference towards, I was kind of like, okay, it makes sense. I'm not mad at it. So yeah.
You understood it. And I think, first of all, I feel heartbroken that both Reggie and Tony had to pop off and that we didn't have enough time for that between everything else we had going on today. But I think above all I really wanted to be able to accomplish was to model conversation in difficult spaces about hard topics and give people a sense of empowerment that you can have these conversations. You don't have to run from these conversations. And yes, it's going to suck. You're going to feel funny. Sometimes you're not going to give a flip no more. Sometimes you're going to, be emotionally depleted. All of that. But if we can just be honest, bring all of ourselves to the conversation, the parts we understand, the parts we don't know, and be willing to learn more, not only about ourselves, but about other people, then we have a real shot of seeing change beyond the signs, beyond what we paint on those streets, beyond what all of that stuff. Then you give All Lives Matter some real teeth. That's how you do it. That's how you give that teeth. You don't just talk about it. You model how it matters. When we say save the whales, nobody goes, but not the seals. We don't do that because right now it's the whales that need our attention, right? So if people could just understand that, and then, or if you're going to be bent on all lives, then how are you showing that all lives? Not just what you're protecting against, but what are you leaning into to show that there's some real meat in that, right? And then for ourselves personally, that we wouldn't get, here's a good little churchy cliche for you, weary in well-doing, that you'll show up every day, willing to have impact, willing to share whatever you have, whether you have it all together or not. I think one of the things you said, Chase, that I kind of thought about was one of your superpowers is to go, you know what, you're right. I don't know it all. I don't have it all figured out, but I'm willing to hear. I don't have it all figured out, but here's kind of the little pieces I got. You know what I mean? Like, I think for any of us, it's always okay to go, I don't have all the answers to this. All I can do is share with you the piece I have. And maybe if you take my piece, you can lay it into the landscape of the other pieces and puzzles that you've collected from other friends and relations and conversations and your own. And maybe we can put this picture together. So I pray that these beautiful souls that showed up for 2.5 hours last time and a little over an hour this time have gifted you all with the representation of some of the dialogue that you might be having on the inside of you, but you've been too afraid to speak out loud, or some of the questions that you would want to ask, or some of the insights you wish you could hear from somebody who doesn't look like you, because they didn't have to do this, but they did. And I appreciate you all. I got nothing but love for you all. Anthony, Reggie, I got nothing but love for you all. And as we move forward, I would love for you all to just keep me looped in to the things that you're doing, any insights that you have. Jay says, sharing is caring, caring for the human collective. There's my godson. What's up? You just had to be seen. Just got to be seen. I see you. We see you. You're muted, so I can't hear you, but hey, godson, good to see you. That's hilarious. So thank you all. I appreciate you all. Thank you all for watching this. Thank you all for sharing this. And I hope that this bridges some gaps in your communication structures. If not, email me. Let me know the areas where you feel we need to dig into. If not with this panel, with a different panel, because I'm committed to doing the work and presenting those things that will help, move us along a little bit of time every single day so we can make some better decisions for better living. Thank you all so much. Appreciate you all. Thank you. Love you. Oh, big heart. Love you all. All right. Bye-bye.